Cheers and good morning to you. The Morning Drip, episode 1, hopefully, the latest one that we'll have, because I had to finish all of the, not the finishing touches, but at least the opening touches of the show. What we will be doing on a daily basis is going through and just kind of talking about whatever's on my mind for 5 or 10 minutes. I think it'll be fun. That way you can kind of get an idea of what is going on in the Michigan landscape if you haven't tuned in for a little bit, or if you're just a Michigan football junkie, you can just kind of inject that into your veins. It's all up to you. Anyway, obviously this is the beginning of game week. Hence this is the first episode of the Morning Drip. We're releasing all kinds of new shows on WolverinesWire, and this is our daily show that we're going to do Monday through Friday. If you didn't see it, check out X's and O's with Jake Butt. We released the first episode of that Sunday. That's available on both WolverinesWire and my YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. And I kind of want to touch on something that he had spoken about. He had said that he had gone to practice and he had just seen the defense flying around. And that's one of those things that we consistently have heard about the defense going in. And I think that that's an exciting prospect if they're able to actually rebound, in the sense of having the defense actually look like what we expected the Michigan defense to look like. That would be a very welcome change, considering what the defense looked like last year. And you add in the unpredictability, that factor, considering I've said it over and over on the Locked On Wolverines podcast, one of the issues with Don Brown and his defense was that it was married very heavily to scheme, and that scheme had gotten predictable, in the sense that I had been told by really good sources years ago that, starting with Ohio State, they knew what was coming on a play-by-play basis, and they knew how to make Don Brown's defense tell it what it was going to do if they couldn't figure it out just by looking at what was going on. I got into further depth there. I'm not going to rehash that much. Now at least you have a guy coming from the NFL and Mike Macdonald. I think it's laughable, the idea that maybe he doesn't, the fact that, hey, he hasn't coordinated a defense before and all of that. I've said it time and time again on Locked On Wolverines. Listen, a guy like Mike Macdonald, if he would have gotten a job someplace like if the Seattle Seahawks or the San Francisco 49ers or the Arizona Cardinals, yes, I'm just running through NFC West teams, but if any of them would have hired him to be their defensive coordinator, no one would have batted an eye, coming from the Baltimore Ravens, being their linebackers coach. So I think that if these guys can know their roles early, and that's the big thing. George Hilo had talked about on Thursday about making sure that guys who play fast, that's because they know what they're supposed to be doing. And they're not perfect yet, but you don't expect a team to be perfect right out the gates, especially with a holistic change the way that Michigan just saw on the defensive side of the ball. But it'll be interesting to see exactly how that ends up working for the Wolverines and if the defense is able to rebound. But as Jake said in the X's and O's episode from Sunday, I've been saying everything hinges on Washington. He says everything hinges on this Western Michigan team, because when he was around, like he said, they would smell blood in the water almost immediately. So Michigan needs to go out and dominate against Western Michigan. If it doesn't, then yeah, maybe you'll see some 2019-esque issues. I mean, still, they were 9-3 in the regular season that year. Hopefully they aren't quite as lackluster in that sense. But you hope that this team sets its identity very quickly, given that there's all this talk about the culture change, the energy, the excitement. You would hope that they go out there and have that type of attitude, because like Jake said, you have those moments where you're when you're on a losing team where it's all right, here we go again. So as long as this team recognizes that that's not what's going to be the case, they set the foundation straight out the gates, then maybe we can see some really good progress throughout the season. But just like anyone, like I'm predicting 8-4. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 9-3 or 8-5. Either way, like I've said before on Locked On Wolverines, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 10-2. I would be surprised if they're 6-6 because Michigan just has a lot more talent than most of the teams it faces, and I think a lot of people forget that. But the foundation has already been laid as far as fall camp is concerned, but it needs to be officially set come this Western Michigan game. The exciting thing is that is coming on Saturday. That brings me to my next thing. I hope that fans are excited. It does not feel like a normal Michigan season in the sense that I talk to my best friend Doug, and a lot of times he's like, yeah, it's happening, right? I mean, it's this week. Whereas normally we're a month out and he's calling me and being like, I cannot believe that we are a month out. 3 weeks. I can't believe we're 3 weeks out. And then we're counting down the days, especially once you get into single digits. We're about 5 days away from Michigan football. I hope y'all are excited, but I understand that there's a lot of trepidation given the fact that Michigan did not play very well last year. However, I still would be excited if I were you. I understand you want it to be what you expected when Jim Harbaugh took over, and that means beating Ohio State, winning championships. I think that there needs to be some level of acceptance right now in the sense of it's not going to be that huge year, but it is a rebuilding year, but it's not like going and watching the Detroit Lions rebuilding, right? You can expect a lot of wins even in a rebuilding year. It should still be a fun season. Just, I would say go in, enjoy it, whatever you get. I wouldn't say it's gravy. This isn't 2008, but it's one of those things where I think you can go into it thinking, all right, if Michigan can go out there, beat a couple teams maybe it's not supposed to, it still might lose some that it shouldn't lose to. I mean, I'm predicting both things. Then at least it's a fun roller coaster ride. And then as long as the team kind of coalesces, especially if the defense can get things figured out, then maybe that Ohio State game is more of a 40-60 rather than I would put it right now at a 10-90. So know that that's the situation that Michigan finds itself in right now is it has to build something because what was happening wasn't working. And that doesn't mean that it won't work going forward, given the holistic changes to the coaching staff, some of the scheme changes like on defense. Just because Josh Gaddis in his offense hasn't clicked yet, I've seen glimpses since game one about what it's supposed to be. So you hope in year three that it's kind of figured out exactly what it wants to be and what it wants to do all the time, and that it is consistent in that. And if they can do that, if they can figure that out, then watch out. It's a lot of ifs, but they play games for a reason. Seasons happen for a reason. Otherwise, we don't just check mark. We're not check marking USC or Texas in for yet another championship, which they've won since going back to the 2004, 2005 type years, right? We're not doing that. So it's because games are played for a reason. Teams rise and fall all the time. So I hope that you are excited to get into this next season. All right, that's going to conclude the first episode of The Morning Drip. Let me know in the comments. Let me know on Twitter at Isaiah Holt what kind of content you want to see coming out of this morning show. I mean, right now this is the intention, just to talk about it, talk about things Michigan football, my thoughts straight out the gates, especially coming out of press conferences and stuff like that. It's kind of like a delayed reaction. But if you have some other things that you want to see here, let me know and we'll see what we can do to add it to the show. Thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in later today, Monday, for the next episode of Recap with Jim Harbaugh's press conference.